Hi everyone, my name's Glen Walton. I'm the Artistic Director at Playable Streets, and this video is going to be a bit of a primer, a bit of an introduction to Playable Streets, what we do, how it started, and what's in store for the future. Playable Streets is a participatory arts company that create works that encourage others to be creative. We work a lot in the public sphere, creating work in public space, often non-ticketed events, large-scale events, but sometimes we do more community-based events where we work with the community over a long period of time. So it's a mixture of art, music, performance, theatre, and it's all wrapped around this idea of participation and how can we get people to participate in creativity. So I'll go back to where it all began. Back in 2015, I was working with Polyglot Theatre and also finishing up doing shows with the Suitcase Royale Theatre Company. I was getting more interested in easily available maker technology. I was looking at YouTube videos about the makey and people making music with bananas. And I just thought that was the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. Very surreal, very strange to make music with a banana, and I just went down like a YouTube rabbit hole of that kind of technology and what that could do. And I guess originally I was slightly disheartened because a lot of those videos were made 5 years earlier, even earlier than that. And I thought, wow, this stuff's been around for a long time. I'm coming to this very late, missing the boat potentially. But the more I looked, the more I saw that a lot of these experiments were happening in people's bedrooms or as performance elements for stage, or they were done in like university laboratories. And not much of this sort of technology was seeing its way into the streets. They weren't being created for other people to have their hands on. So that was just the premise. Use some of this technology to wire up the street, make the streets playable in some way, make them musical. I worked alongside another mate of mine, Pickle Henning, who was doing an engineering degree. And I was like, oh, you'll know a bit about the coding stuff. So he started doing some coding and working out how to work that. We developed just a really simple device that in theory we could use to wire up street furniture like bike poles or seats or just metallic objects. That was the idea. And so I applied for a little bit of funding through Test Sites, which is a great program that City of Melbourne run, which actually still runs. So if you're interested in this kind of work, check out Test Sites. And we got a small amount of money. I think we got about $5,000 to put it together. So we bought a little bit of tech and we tested it out at home and it worked fine. And then, we also had a small pot of plants, as that was like a secondary thing that we hadn't really thought much about. We're like, let's just shove it in some plants. You know, it'll just be like the bananas and you can play musical phrases with those plants. We got there on the day, we just had one day to set it up and do it, and then had to pack down at the end of the day. So we ran all the wires, did all that, and by like midday, it wasn't working. The tech wasn't working. I think in hindsight, we were running wires that were way too long for the sensors to work. It was just a complete kind of schmozzle. But the plants did work. These like little pot plants that people could touch, and they were playing these symphonic loops. You could add the loops together and kind of create a song by touching the different plants. And that got some good feedback. People actually came and played with that straight off the street of their own volition. I'd invited some people from a gallery to come and check it out too, and they thought the plants thing was really nice and they really liked it and they wanted to do something like that in their gallery. So even though it kind of started off as a bit of a failure in terms of the ambition that we had and what actually happened, it sort of sparked a few ideas and a few connections. So the first one was that the plants work, so we should follow that. And then the second one was this connection with the gallery, and they wanted something that was more like a visual art exhibition. So we took both of those things and kept running with both of them. So the musical plants got another little development season at the Abbotsford Convent, which also run funded developments, which is worth looking into. Kane and I worked on that for about a week, making an instrument of 12 plants, and that worked pretty well. And over the next 7 years, we kept developing it a little bit at a time, until it became the new version of the musical plants, which was premiered at the Recital Centre in Melbourne in 2024. And that was a completely redesigned version. We're still touring with that work now, and we've recently just taken that to the Seoul Street Arts Festival and the Silk Road Festival in South Korea. So that had its own journey. And then the other path we took, this was really one of those things where we just kind of kept saying yes to things. And it led to a whole other side of Playable Streets that I think we do less of now, but that's a conscious choice that we made. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So we went and talked to this gallery in Maroondah in Ringwood, and they have like a sort of an artist fee. I think it was like 10 grand to do a gallery work that's kind of like in residency. So we would spend our time in the gallery. We were around the area. People could come in and see the process of us making the work. And the concept for the work was using conductive paint, which I just kind of learnt about through YouTube. That came from a company called Bear Conductive, which unfortunately don't make the paint anymore, but they were a great company making a lot of the kind of early tech and the paint that allowed people to make interactive walls, essentially. And so we used this conductive paint. We recorded sounds around the gallery and interviews with people and bits of music, and we put those things into the wall and allowed people to touch the walls and hear the kind of sounds of the community played back to them. I worked with an amazing visual artist, Edwina Atkins, who did all the paintings of local people. It was a great process. It took a lot of time. We definitely spent more time in the gallery than that $10,000 covered, especially when you think of all the tech that we had to gather up as well to get this to work. We were testing things out. We were just having to get speakers, and it was just a lot bigger than the budget allowed for. We did that project and it went pretty well. People were happy with it, and the gallery was happy with it because people were actually coming in. And a lot of suburban galleries have this issue, often referred to as like the threshold problem, where people see that there's a gallery there. It might be connected to a library or in a cultural space, but people have this issue with actually stepping in, like that space isn't theirs, that it doesn't belong to them. And so that was something that we were trying to address by having elements of the community already in there and inviting people to come in and engage with that, which I think was relatively successful and worked. And that's why they brought us back again the following year to do another work called Sounding Stories, which was a similar kind of work, but working with a local refugee community from Burma. That worked really well. And then we came back, I think 2 years later, and did another work called Islands, which is a interactive projection work. So all these works were much bigger gallery-based works, and they took a lot more time to make. They were much more complex and a lot more collaboration with the community, whereas something like the plants, it was a lot easier to kind of just pop up and do. So we actually toured the plants across Victoria to many different venues, and we even did a Regional Arts Victoria tour with that work. It was just something we could put in a van, 2 artists would go with it and set it up and present the work. I'm kind of skipping over a lot of the works that we did in that time. I'll probably jump back to them at some stage and maybe do an individual video for each one. In those 7 years, we did an amazing animation project with Isabel Knowles. We did a large-scale mural work during COVID with Steph Hughes, some workshops that we actually collaborated with Polyglot Theatre on that we sent out to regional Victoria, and lots of other little experiments, little developments. Made about 17 individual works in the first 7 years of the company. It was a lot, and it was great, but it was not sustainable as a business. The thing that was happening is that we would say apply to a council to do a new work, and basically all the budget would be used up in the development of that work. At the end, it would be great, it'd be awesome, but would probably be close to break even. Maybe you'd have a little bit left over, maybe nothing at all, but it would be around the break-even mark. And at the end of that, you would then reset and then start and do something new at the next council or the next gallery or the next commissioning body. It wasn't sustainable because if you're always breaking even, you haven't got things to pay for website fees or pay for Xero. It made it really hard. So on one stage, we were kind of growing in that we're working with a lot more people. In that 7 years, I brought on Kate Perman as a producer, and we worked together on all these projects. Yeah, it was tricky. It was difficult. 7 years into it, we sat down. We need to change the way we are running this company. Well, we have to change the work that we're doing, essentially, to see if we can actually make it sustainable. We had just made a work called Reflection, which is like a large-scale mirror maze that we invite people to draw on and reflect on. Very literal, but also kind of metaphorical. That had been relatively successful, and people were asking to do that again. And so we realized we had these two works, the musical plants and Reflection, that we could do multiple times. We could take it to this festival over here, we could take it to this festival, and we wouldn't have to keep reinventing the wheel. We just focused on those two works, and that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 3 years, just focusing on those two works. It's impossible for me not to also be thinking about making new stuff, so in that time we have actually made new works, but the core output of the company has been mostly Reflection and musical plants. That's done pretty well, I think, so far. I think we're ready now to go back and start doing some of these longer engagement works. We're having talks to some presenters about presenting sounding stories again, or doing islands again, and some of these works that we're really excited to see how they could evolve. I guess that's one of the biggest lessons we've learned as Playable Streets, is that saying yes to everything at the start was actually really great to expand what we do, to experiment, to broaden the concept of what we're doing, and to actually understand what the concept was. This company didn't start as a participatory art company. It wasn't really necessarily all about participation. It was about interaction, and it was about creating things that people could play in public spaces. But it wasn't until we'd done those 17 works that we started to see, oh, this is actually about people being creative together. And, whether it's a large scale work, it's people being creative together and developing a work of their own, or it's us creating a work that allows people to be creative in public spaces. So the work informed the mission. And I guess another thing that is a result of doing that much work is that you get to show it, take heaps of photos, video, and we started to build up a website that showed that we had a very broad range of our artworks, and that we were around for the long term. We weren't just doing one or two things and collaborating here and there. We were the kind of company that we wanted people to come into. So that was the first 7 years. And then I've talked about the subsequent 3 years in which we kind of focused on the plants and Reflection. So now we're actually broadening out again and looking at working outside of the creative arts sector. We've started a collaboration with Changi Airport, where we're creating a musical garden in one of their terminals, Terminal 2. And that project's been going for almost 2 years now. And it's just an evolving thing where they're kind of working out what they want, and we're kind of working out the best way to engage a public on a sort of semi-permanent basis. And then we're working in aged care. So we've developed a program of works under the umbrella of Duet Arts. That program is all about developing work with and for people in aged care, especially people living with dementia. And we have 2 works that we bring in and do workshop. So we have the plants, the musical plants, where people can play musical plants, and a new device called Sound Touch, which allows people to make music through interpersonal touch. We started a pilot program for that in 2018, actually coming out of the Maroondah Council. So that actually came from that first meeting that I had with the council when we had the test sites program, and 3 exhibitions later, they brought in an aged care group. They said, oh, could you do a workshop with this group? And I was like, yeah, of course, we can give it a go. And at the time, we were working on another work called Reach Out Sounds, where people reach out and make music in public through skin contact. So we ran that. They really liked it. So then the council said, oh, could you work with our aged care and disabilities team to come up with something that we could bring into aged care settings? It just shows that even though we weren't expecting to come to this point when we had that first conversation with the council, it all just developed just through being available and being curious. You just really don't know where some of these relationships are going to lead you, and being able to be flexible and being able to follow your curiosity is a way to move forward. I mean, I think there's times when we could have been more strategic. And like I said, when we decided to just focus on those 2 participatory works, that was kind of a strategic move. But there's also times to not be strategic and to actually let the world lead you a little bit. That doesn't work for everyone. That's definitely something I've noticed in myself that I really enjoy. And it's the way that I think Playable Streets has evolved into the company that it is now. So that's the story so far of Playable Streets, how it's a little spark and a experiment on a city street led to 10 years of exploration and development. And we're hoping to move forward and keep collaborating with people, keep developing works that get bigger and bigger, keep employing artists, keep collaborating with makers everywhere, keep collaborating with communities as well. And we want to keep challenging ourselves to do more and get bigger. But that said, also we need to make it sustainable, and that's something that is tricky in this climate, but it's always been tricky, has always been tricky the 20 plus years I've been in the arts, and it's something I want to be exploring more on this channel. So please stay tuned. If you have any questions about the Playable Streets journey or your own journey and questions around that, please feel free to leave a comment below or email us at hello@playablestreets.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Playable Streets, and if you'd like to support what we do, you can go over to our Patreon page, which has a link below. Thank you so much, and remember, keep creating, keep participating, and we will see you soon on the Playable Streets channel.